Good morning, folks. I hate appearing on here with the glasses on. They are readers, and they're lowly one powers. I should get stronger ones now. Didn't have to use readers until I hit 863. That was a while ago. Got away with it. I'm looking at some weird comments. People think that videos are funny. They think that my assertions, I guess, well, I'm not really sure. But from the comments, one may assume that one called itself some sort of bot. And I just decided to get rid of the comment. I don't need that sort of a distraction thing there. And if they're going to be that off the wall, I mean, either they're crazy or they're bots or whatever, I don't want them having access to this information. I consider this information very precious. It's about all I have. Welcome to the Dr. Kent Show. This is the 11th of January. This is going to be the number 24th issue. Since I started counting, there are a couple hundred more videos before that, many of which YouTube did not, well, they give me a message saying failed to upload. I think it's been a very subtle kind of a censorship. I don't know where to start this morning, but I hope I get a good flow going for you. I feel optimistic this morning. I feel like telling you something wonderful is about to happen, but I can't tell you what it's going to be. I don't have a hint. However, I think it has to do with the fact that all of these governments we have aren't our governments. They are the governments of the evil ones. Those people behind the scenes that are leeching off the rest of us and have been living off us for millennia and sapping the earth of its strength and poisoning us, killing us. They're being exposed quickly, but you folks that are stuck in the CNN machines and their other CIA Operation Mockingbird crap, you can't see it and you're not going to get it. Right now, we are in a war, and we are losing more than 10,000 Americans each day. And we're being flooded with incompatible immigrants, and they're giving our wealth to them and robbing from us. And I look and I think, man, these poor people that are on the streets. I saw a man and woman on their bicycles. And I've seen that a few times, that the couple is out there living on bicycles, homeless. And I'm like, oh my Lord. It's because they've inflated the value of lodging, because the government is busy inventing, creating, robbing more money from the past and from the future in order to house these immigrants, is what they want us to call them, these invaders. Let's call them invaders. I don't want to call them illegal immigrants. They're invaders. It's an invading force, and they are working for the Democrats to destroy the substance of this nation and destroy the balance of power. They've been doing it for decades. And at least people in other countries weren't dumbasses like Americans. They stopped it. They wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't allow it down in Chile for a long time. But I got to tell you, Chile screwed up now too. They elected a communist woman to their office of presidency, and for some reason or other, they immediately opened up the doors to blacks from Haiti who are not very well educated and not compatible, and they don't, and they're on the government dole, just like we do up here. And they just flooded the place a few years ago. I haven't kept up with it. I do know that they screwed up. And what happened a long time ago in Chile is kind of interesting. What they did years ago that made it such a white country, and I know the person that told me this prefaced it this way, what they did wasn't very nice. They killed off all the other peoples, and then they wouldn't allow them into the country. Now they've allowed them in, okay? And it is going to be kind of strange, because that place used to be better than us, and the Chilean passport was far more accepted around the planet. You didn't have to have visas in more places. They were far more respected than citizens of the United States. I like to differentiate citizens of the United States from Americans. Lorraine, quiet. She's playing in her kennel with her bone and tossing it around. It's a pretty big bone. She's a pretty strong dog. My God. I mean, this is a dog that could be in a circus, up in the air all the time doing stuff. She's just incredibly strong, and here I am, a lame old man trying to manage this very powerful dog. She needs more activity and more direction. I think I should pass her on to somebody else. But if I can find somewhere that she and I can go where there's some really incredible training that challenges the dogs, she's going to be happy. She needs that kind of activity. I've been watching a video. I know you're going to say Dr. Kent's racist. Look, I'm a survivalist, and I would have to say the word racialist is a word that needs to be used more. And anybody can be a racialist. I mean, blacks are racialists. Look at it. They want their kind to survive. So there's something wrong with me wanting my kind to survive. Well, I think there is, because the people that are evil know that we are the ones that are between them and the little guy running over the whole planet. See, I think there's a big war going on. It's between the sons. Oh, I've been watching some Under the Carpet series. There's 3 parts, and the last one is Distant Cousins. And I'm just flabbergasted by this series that was made 3 years ago produced by a guy named Marsh, I believe. And there's a woman featured in it who's older, yet very attractive, kind of. Seriously, she's in good shape. She's narrating this thing. I think they chose a spokesman wisely, because you want elders telling these stories, and they interview elders. And it's just mind-boggling how interrelated we are, and how the Pacific stuff happened. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, and you really, really need to watch that series. You will find out that the migrations have been back and forth, and the governments. The governments are destroying these sites. They don't want us to know. And New Zealand appears to be the hub of all this stuff. I mean, seriously, the hub of it. And you look at those people and their traditions, and here you've got the government of New Zealand committing democide as fast as they can. They will tell you those people, those old indigenous peoples, are no longer here, and yet the old indigenous peoples will laugh and say, well, I'm here, we're here, and they understand their history and traditions. And the New Zealand government, just like the government in the United States, when they find a giant skull or giant skeleton, they destroy those. They want to hide the real history from us. And the thing is, the real history is just incredible. It turns out the Maori came from Alaska. And it makes sense when you look at all the artwork and symbols. I mean, it goes right together. And it's just an incredible story about their migrations and how they followed the birds. And you may think, well, the birds can go wherever they want. You got to remember that birds have this incredible homing device, this incredible skill to migrate and know where they're going. And it's magnetically based. That's part of why things are going screwy, is because our magnetic field is weakening right now. You see, at the end of the Earth age, the magnetic field just drops and collapses. The Earth actually shifts in a major way, and there's a lot of destruction, and it's basically a birth. The Earth gets reborn. And I think we're coming up to one of those periods. Now, the period that was suggested in these videos is 25,000 years. They went over some of the catastrophes, but that's not what this was about. This was about peoples and the migrations. And when you read it, it's like the tribes down there, they intermarried and they mixed up. and they love the people they come from. I mean, there's no problem with what they've created down there. Now, is that biblical? This isn't Awakening Israel. That's my other channel. We'll get that angle in a little bit later. I just want to rise up and give you a little bit of hope today. These guys that have been running the planet, and women, by the way, because they're probably really the ones running the whole place behind the scenes. There's a fellow that claims that there's a group of women that run the planet, and it's really secret, and there's a bunch of men that protect them, and that this group of women, their cult, their craft is poisoning and poisons, and they have this knowledge and power that they keep to themselves, and as a result, these leaders of countries who want their craft, because they want to kill the other son of a bitch, they want to commit murder, they want to have power, they will turn to the women in this cult, if you will, and use that. And in case you're wondering, that's where your medical profession comes from. Yeah, it's all built on principles of toxicity and disabling. We are in a war right now. You could call it a silent war because we're forced on radio silence. We're not allowed to talk about it. We have to censor all this stuff that's going on. But I estimate that every day we lose more than 10,000 Americans, which is what I will call us, because that's what we really should call ourselves. This United States government is a bunch of corporations controlled out of the Vatican and out of England, out of the city of London, which is a little town inside of London. It's a separate jurisdiction, just like D.C. is a separate jurisdiction. And I don't know when people in this country are going to figure out that it's an enemy territory inside the land. They took us over from within. They pulled a series of frauds. And they did all kinds of stuff to monetize things like our birth certificates, debt, bonds. They created all of this fiat money magic, all out of nothing, so they could steal the real money. And that's what they've done. Because you and I will say, well, I don't have enough money to do this or that. I need more money. And what we have is not money. What you have is debt. You're holding an IOU that you don't even own. You have no ownership. You have no possession in that. And it's backed by gold and silver somewhere. So you're really exchanging gold and silver, and you need to go back to that standard. Screw having a reserve currency of the world, a reserve currency upon which to defraud the world and steal. Inflation is nothing more than theft. And your inflation isn't due to the fact that the interest rate's too low, so the bankers just have to do some technical stuff and everything's fixed. It's a bunch of bullshit and it's a big lie. They're making it worse. They manipulate this shit on purpose so they can rob us. And yesterday, I got the hint that we're about to go into a deflationary period where things could just drop in value. That's what they do. They push you in one direction, and they push you in the other direction, and they keep pushing you back and forth in order to weaken you, to break the temper of your mind. You know, if you want to break a piece of steel, you push it in one direction, then you push it in the other direction, and you keep pushing it back and forth, and gradually the temper of that metal breaks, gives way, it breaks. And in case you're wondering, this is a psychological principle. They've done a bunch of bullshit to us in the profession. Have you heard of learned helplessness? You need to know what learned helplessness is. We had the best psychology in the world in this country till about 1983. That's when everything was handed over to psychiatry and the medical model and their system of poisons and disabling, whereby they target your organs and they cut your lifespan down to about half of what it should be. They do that on purpose. You see, if you really wanted a medicine, you would get it from a green plant where it's in a form that your body can absorb it or reject it, do what it wants with it, because it's more bioavailable and it's not so strong. It's like cocaine or heroin. You've got these powders that are just incredibly powerful that can cause some grief. But if you go to the original leaf, like when the Pope, when he goes to South America, he always drinks some cocaine tea so he can breathe at elevation. It's a stimulant. My God, we used to have it in Coca-Cola. Cocaine, Coca-Cola. Life goes better with Coke. They had us all addicted for a bit, and they changed it around. We used to have all kinds of concoctions that you could buy from the pharmacist without a damn permission slip from a frickin' doctor. I'm sorry. I look down at these doctors, and you guys tell me, oh, you're not a doctor. You're a fake doctor. He's not a real doctor. I've heard parents tell that to their children when they want to know why I'm Dr. Kent. The parents are dumbasses. They don't understand that my degree outranks those technical degrees. They don't like it when I show up too much because they know that according to the tradition, the PhD has got about 4 centuries behind it, and the MD's only got 1 century behind it. And they're mere technicians. They're drug dealing prostitutes, drug dealing whores. They're pushing the drugs and pushing all this stuff on behalf of the evil ones who are shortening our lives and have been doing it for a long time. Those evil, wicked doctors came out of Egypt a long time ago, and they practice some weird stuff. The priesthood in Egypt was weird. You need to understand that most all of this stuff come out of Polynesia. I mean, when I surmise that this Hebrew language, Paleo-Hebrew, which has no vowels, all consonants, which is based upon not 26 letters like we have today in English, but fewer letters than that. And it turns out that the Hebrews borrowed their alphabet. They didn't invent it. Yahweh doesn't look like Yahweh gave it to them either. It looks like they got it from the enemy. Looks like they got it from the Phoenicians, the seafaring people. And it looks like it came out of Polynesia. That's what I was saying. That's what it sounds like. I mean, I picked that up somehow in all the stuff I've taken in, all the YouTube videos, all the books, everything. And I'll be darned somebody didn't chime in who watched the video and told me about this series I need to go look at. Man, what a gift. I mean, we are so interrelated on this planet. Now, they had the genealogies for the old Maori, Hawaiians, what were those? What's that woman? What was she? She gave me trouble in the doggone chorus all the time. She was petite as could be. She was a tiny person, but man, was she dominant. She wanted to, her people. Oh, by the way, they didn't mention the fact that they enslaved people and they wanted to respect them. It's Haida. Yeah, Haida. They went after the Tlingit. I've hung out with the Tlingit as well. They got 2 clans down there. It's an amazing system for a family. We really ought to mainstream that. I loved it. You got the eagles and you got the crows. The ravens. Okay. And you don't marry from your own clan. You marry from the other clan. And it's unusual in that the parents don't discipline their children. It's like they get to be the best of buddies and have a good time together. So the parents are do all this. And guess who the disciplinarian for the children is? Guess who makes the plans for those children's futures? The father's brother. Their uncle disciplines the children and gives them directions for their lives. It's amazingly wonderful. Now, you got to worry about this because there's matriarchies in there. And the Haida in particular was matriarchal. The women dominated. And of course, this little petite thing would tease my ass and tell me she was going to make me her slave. She was going to take me slave. And I didn't realize at the time that it was really her tradition. And she knew her tradition. And I wished I hadn't been so put off by her breastness and forwardness. She was kind of cute. Really didn't appeal to me that much. And her dominance really. But I would have loved to have known more about her people, because she obviously knew about it, and I would have learned more had I hung out with her a little bit. And we had another little girl who was a white girl in particular who was an attorney. She was pretty weird too. She loved taking screamers. You know what a screamer is? She was an ice climber, and she'd go down turning an arm, and she'd climb up on the ice falls that were, frozen in the wintertime. And she was tiny as well. And she loved taking screamers. Oh, God. Crazy. Crazy. I'm not going to do that. These folks get out there with helmets on, pads on, and, some heavy gear, well, light gear too, so they can be nimble. They go climbing those damn ice falls like a bunch of nuts. And they're all roped up, and they've got all that hardware that they go up with, the hammers, the nails, well, there's formal names for that stuff. You can tell I haven't done it. It's been a long time since I talked about mountain climbing. I used to know the terms of those things. A screamer was when you take a fall unexpectedly, and you get to go, woo, right down, and the rope stops you and saves you. And you're tied to other people, and they stop you and save you too. Well, I imagine she liked falling. She was pretty petite. I guess some big guys could anchor her down, but oh my God. You got teamwork going on. Quiet. Quiet, little girl. Good, Lorraine. Good, quiet. Good girl. What did I say? Quiet. She's looking right at me. No. Down. She's spoiled. Guess who spoiled her? Good girl. Quiet. You need to, what do you need to understand today? You need to understand a few things. And one of the things I learned watching that video is I stopped, when they had the genealogies, I stopped it. And these were handwritten genealogies in very good penmanship, cursive style. Wish I could write that. I actually got schooled in it. My school teachers were pretty weird back then. I had a real abusive one named Miss Johnson. And she wouldn't allow us to write cursive. I was already learning cursive, and I had to go back to 2 lines and writing big, weird letters. And it was going so damn backwards, I couldn't stand it. I just come from Mrs. Cargile's class, who was one of the best teachers I ever had as a little boy. I mean, I loved my teacher. I called her mom by mistake one time. I did that with one other teacher. The worst thing you do is call your teacher mom. Everybody stops. Oh, whoa, we called her mom, It's like, okay. Mrs. Cargile was wonderful. Anyway, we used ballpoint pens back then. That was when the ballpoint pen was invented. We had been using the old style before that with the ink. And we had advanced to the ink cartridges. So you put a cartridge in the pen, and you had that tip. Anyway, it was a while back. Yeah. And what's her name's books were written in ballpoint pen? What's that bitch's name that was in hiding supposedly during World War II? Turns out that was a fraud too. What was that famous woman's name who hung out as a little girl, supposedly? It was a total fraud, and the man who wrote the story we know the truth because he took the publisher to court because he was commissioned by this outfit to write the book under contract, and they refused to pay him his wages, so he went to court to get it. Oh, it's not Ayn Rand. I come up with that, but it's something else. Oh, you'll know who I'm talking about. She wrote that with a ballpoint pen. Ballpoint pens didn't exist until about 1960. 61. I think 59, 60. That's when they came about. And we got that little bitch supposedly writing in ballpoint pen about how horrible the Nazis were and how she had to hide as a good little Jew during the war. Bunch of frauds, folks. That's all we live on today. History is bunk, was what Henry Ford said. All history is bunk. That's the word he used. I'm wondering, why is the guy saying that? Because he knew that it is bunk. All that stuff you're being taught is bunk. The people in New Zealand, it's all bunk. They claim that it wasn't inhabited till 700 years ago. Oh, shit, man. I mean, those people are still down there, including the green-eyed redheads are down there. I saw the pictures of them. They're alive today, man. They haven't disappeared. And they did intermarry with some others, and they created their own tribe. They've got, I mean, it's wonderful how they accepted each other and how they intermarried. I'm sorry, I know that's not exactly going to line up with Awakening Israel very well, because we are ordered by Yahweh to not marry the people of the land and not intermarry with them. And we're going to get into that. The genealogies for these people. And the Maori came out of Hawaii as well. The interaction between Hawaii, Alaska, and I can't blame those people for leaving the temperate rainforest. It's always bad weather, man. I mean, it's raining all the damn time. The the trees grow like grass there. They have to cut that forest because it grows so fast. And I know you say we have to preserve the forest. Well, the only way to preserve that forest is to get in there and cut the trees, because it grows fast. And most of that wood gets sent abroad, which is okay. The problem is that we pay to give them the trees. I don't know why we just don't process it ourselves and create something instead of sending the raw materials abroad and losing money. And we send a lot of coal abroad too. And all of our oil from Alaska goes abroad as well. And by the way, the pipeline is only capable of carrying so much oil, but it's running at probably less than a third capacity, which is a sin, because by the contract, once that thing goes below a certain level, we have to destroy it. We have to destroy that. And the thing is, there's enough oil on that North Slope in one well to last 1,500 years. I say that Alaska goes independent. I think we need to become an independent nation. We could become the peacekeepers between Russia and America. We need to stop calling it the United States, though. I think that's an evil country, to be honest with you. That's the beast system. It's the culmination of the beast system. You can go look at my other channel, Awakening Israel, if you want to understand that. I want to get back to it. I looked at the genealogies for these people that were written down, that were kept on Maui, I think. Maori people, Maui in Hawaii. Even the names are similar. I looked through, and in parentheses, they had the names of the Bible. The Bible characters were there. And they didn't have it right. They had one major error in their stuff, because they don't understand the Bible very well. And so they had Cain in there, but they didn't have the right father there for him. They have an error. And that's what we know, and what they want to call our movement. You know, British Israelism is what it was called at one point. You know, Christian Israelite is another one. And we got the Black Hebrew Israelites as well, you know, which Rudy Dent was a friend of mine, and he believed in that, and he explained it to me, and I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I can see how they might want to believe that. I don't think it's right, and I could see the basis for it, but it's like, why not let them into the club? Well, to a certain extent, why not? I mean, especially when we know that some of our books, I know, it's not Awakening Israel, this is the Dr. Kent Show. Anyway, let's go back to the main thing at hand. The governments are against the people around the world. All of these governments are controlled by the evil one. There is a world government right now. All these fiat money systems are used to manipulate us. They do boom and bust on purpose so they can grab up the assets. And they're busy trying to manipulate it for one last time. And they've even built underground bunkers for the doomsday thing coming. Well, the thing is that it serves another purpose, so those people that have robbed the rest of us can go down underground and hide from us, along with all the gold that they've stolen as well. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Our founders gave us a proper government. It was biblically oriented. And the Constitution is still the law of the land. You see, what happened is they brought over and they took us captive. But rather than deporting us, picking us up, and putting us over on the other side of Assyria or down in Babylon, this time they brought the jurisdiction to us and superimposed it. And that jurisdiction is the admiralty law, the law of the seas, maritime law, the law of the merchants. So that's what they've done to us. They've captured us and they've got us under their laws, which have us written up as being basically dead, and some weird other entities, the straw man. I talk about some things that I don't really have great understanding, and the straw man is one of those that perplexes me, but we do know that it's a straight out fraud whereby they operate. And if you go into court and you know your stuff, you can actually tell them that you're not under their jurisdiction. If you know how to hold your ground, and if you haven't been deceived, and you've sorted it out, you can stand there and basically tell that judge he's not even a real judge. That he hasn't, there's all kinds of laws for the judges. They have to have all kinds of bonds, all kinds of loyalty things, all kinds of things in place. And you need to understand that the attorneys screwed us over pretty badly. How? Because they gave us their British accreditation regency. I always thought it was registration. It turns out the regent operates in place of the king, and they are all beholden to the King of England. They can't tell you the truth about the laws. They can't tell you it because they don't know it. They've all been taught some weird stuff in law school. And very few of them ever get to the real law. One of those who told the truth and understood the truth has blown the minds of retired judges and prosecuting attorneys because they realized they screwed up, and what they did is they committed a bunch of crimes. Their careers were criminal in nature, and they weren't aware of it. So part of it is in about 1964, instead of taking common law pleas, we went to statutory pleas, which is a crime for us to require statutory pleas rather than common law pleas. We violated everybody's rights since 1964. And in case you're wondering, the reason we're so willing to do it is because that central federal government is very evil, and based upon psychological principles, they have rewarded bad behavior. So they will send the state beaucoup bucks for housing a man. And the state gets to make money off that shit. And so, I mean, Joe Arpaio in Maricopa County, the sheriff, had contracts with these places. And if they didn't keep his jail, his tent city occupied, because he got federal money coming in, if they didn't keep his jail occupied, those jurisdictions had to pay him. What a racket. What an immoral racket to deal in the souls of men. It's in the Bible. Those who deal in the souls of men. I think it's in Revelations. Anyway, the way I see it is the county, the people at large in the county, have to be willing to foot the bill for incarceration. Because if that man's done things that are so bad that he doesn't deserve to be maintained alive and merits being put to death, then so be it. The people shouldn't have the burden of keeping him alive and taking a chance he's going to reoffend. Yeah, you've been breeding criminality. They've been doing it on purpose. That's why the family courts are structured the way they are, because they know that fatherless parenting results in criminality. They run this place for the worst outcomes possible. They gave you a marriage license under the guise of the government needs to raise money during the war, and when the war's over, well, we won't have licenses anymore. You won't have to have it. But if you want to get married, you have to marry. You have to pay for a license. And then they got involved and twisted it all up. They gave all the rewards to the women quite unfairly. And the sociopathy for women is actually higher than men. That's even alluded to in the Bible. But the fact is that more women are sociopaths and sociopathic than men. And you might want to think opposite. Well, that's one of those fairy tales, those myths, that's part of the deception. You know, boys are made of snails and puppy dog tails and all this other stuff, and women are sugar and spice and everything nice. I'm sorry, ladies, but you aren't fair. You don't play fair, and you certainly don't fight fair either. So, if I was to say anything to one of these men, I would say, number one, do not get married. Number two, do not cohabitate. Number three, avoid the entanglement and regard them as traps. I had a friend, Smith was his last name. He had a weird attitude towards women. He says he didn't get it because sex is when a man gave and a woman took. And it was kind of an inverted thing, because in our society we run around and think, well, it's when women give and men take. Now, it's pretty much the opposite, and it is certainly the opposite when it comes to resources. And women own and control most of the resources on the planet, no longer men. And remember that group that's hidden behind the scenes of all these other hidden people that you can't see. And they're supposed to be women whose major is in poisoning. Poisons. We are living in such grand deception and so many problems that they got us chasing our tails. They got us doing what they want. The field of psychology has been used against the people as well. We invented terms. We did research. We studied obedience to authority, conditions in which things like that occur. We studied the executive monkey, studies in which monkeys got electrocuted and they didn't know when to expect it and how they would be treated. So we've taken those principles and mainstreamed them. The plantation owners have, the masters have, they've mainstreamed those. And some of those studies and experiments they took underground because they couldn't do those publicly. They couldn't do that. You know, they were unethical, and we would have had a major uprising. A lot of that had to do with the sex mind slave kind of stuff. That stuff's real, and psychologists aren't even allowed to study that or know about it. Talk about being ignorant and stupid. I had to read books by other women to know it existed. Bryce Taylor's Thanks for the Memories. Excellent book. Go get it. You'll be shocked. The hell is Henry Kissinger doing alive and running free after all the shit he's done to people? That criminal, that mass murderer, genocidist, he should have been dealt with a long time ago. And all you people think Bob Hope was so wonderful. And then you got Kathy O'Brien, Trans-America, which is like, even my friend who read it said, you got to read it with one eye closed. She read the book, and I'm like, man, I can't tolerate that kind of evil, that much stuff. My grandmother had it right, that men couldn't deal very well with sickness. We weren't all that strong, and that, you know, because women dealt with sickness and men weren't strong enough. We were weak when it came to dealing with sickness. That's what she stated, and she was right. Siri Singh Saab said that women have so many more times the nerve strength than men. They got a bigger aura. They're given more capacities for the purposes of motherhood. They misuse those extra capacities to become manipulative, and and as a result, they drive themselves insane. They drive themselves crazy. They screw themselves up by doing that way and living that way. Oh, the aura, but they have the I want to say mechanical, but biological, the field that goes around the body, in which this body exists, which is probably the soul, actually. It's designed on a woman so that she imprints every one of her sex partners, and that stays with her to infinity, according to the old scriptures, the old books. And by the way, what's the oldest language on the world? Akkadian, I believe. And what is it? It's a binary language. It's computer language. And man, God, if you run into a creature and it starts speaking in tips and taps sort of thing, clicks and clacks real fast, sounds like like an insect buzzing around or something. You can't keep up with that creature. I mean, you might be dealing with one of the ancient ones. I think they really exist. And they gave us that literature a long time ago. And it's computer language. We don't talk like that today. I don't know if they talked like that back then. I guess the Akkadian, they did do that. But maybe it was just the learned people, the top of the class, if you will, the super predators who were educated and used language and kept books and records on accounts and accounting. What might happen is that we might actually get the Great Reset and go back to our republic. And in case you're wondering how to do that, you need to elect organic governments, especially at the state level, and get rid of these corporations. All these governments are incorporated, and they're all underneath the big corporation. They're all incorporated underneath the Vatican. And the Corporation of the United States of America was founded, the first one, by Benjamin Franklin. And I don't know if he did it because he was a dumbass, or if he was the victim of a honeypot scheme, because he was hanging out in Paris when he signed the Treaty of Paris, and they were taking him at night to the Hellfire Club, where the girls were. They were bribing him. And the gentleman with whom he signed the treaty with England wore two hats, just like your corporations do today. They have different hats that they wear when they're doing different transactions. And that's what they do on your Securities and Exchange Commission. And don't ask me, I don't understand it. I watched a middle-aged housewife who wasn't educated explain it to everybody in a video on YouTube, and she made it so common sense, I was even able to understand the thing. So the man would conduct business under one corporate number, and then he would take the asset, he would go over and do business under a different corporate number, and thereby, through some of that, somehow it was screwing people over. So the Securities and Exchange Commission is nothing but basically a switchboard for committing frauds. All that stuff's fraudulent. You can thank Alexander Hamilton, whose last name was Levine. There's an apostrophe in it, so there's no V. It was French. I think he was born in one of our territories, and of mixed lineage, and he was honeypotted by a married couple, and he also became a Rothschild agent. And the Rothschilds gave you your Securities and Exchange stuff, your stock exchange. Yeah, you ought to give credit where credit is due and thank the devil for giving you this wonderful mercantile system that you attribute to Alexander Hamilton's greatness, working as a Rothschild agent, trying to convince George Washington to become king. They wanted him to become a king so they could do what they wanted with him. Everything was fine for 7 years at the beginning of our nation. The real crap happened in 1812. The attorneys, the member of the Bar Association, the British Accreditation Regency, or the British Association Regency, or the British Association Registry, however you want to call it, beholding to the crown in England, not to Americans. That's why they passed the original 13th Amendment, which said any member of the Bar Association was not a citizen. They stripped them of all citizenship. And they couldn't hold office. It was separation of powers. I know you're going to say, well, it was titles of nobility, and we couldn't have that. No, it was separation of powers. And by the time Abraham Lincoln come around, he knew he was in office in violation of the law because he was a bar member. And he decided to hide his crime, so he overwrote the original 13th Amendment, which kind of went fallow. And they didn't enforce it in 1813 on March 4th when they sat the new Congress. They sat the attorneys. The attorneys, as officers of the court, were already members of the judiciary. And as officers of the judiciary, they were not allowed to cross over and become members of the other two branches of government. They couldn't become part of the legislators, and they couldn't become the administrators, president, vice president. They couldn't hold those offices, but the dumbasses seated them. And you're going to say, well, it was never ratified. Yes, it was. The British stole the records from Virginia, the handwritten legislative notes under which the vote was taken, under which the 13th Amendment was passed, and that was to be the 9th state. But people didn't realize there was a 10th state. And it only took 9 out of the 13 to do it. And that was New Hampshire. New Hampshire ratified it as well. So it is the law of the land. And I love it. I love it. You know what I love about it? Because we are going to be able to look at those attorneys after we tell them the law, and the attorneys are going to say, we didn't know. We didn't know the law. And what will we say? What they have always lectured us and said to us. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. We put the attorneys in their place. We kick them out of those offices that they're in. We return to separation of powers, so the attorneys can't get us into wars anymore like they did in 1812. The overture of 1812 with all those cannon blasts. You know where else there's a lot of cannon blasts? Besides at the beginning of that? Whenever they inaugurate a new Jesuit general. Yeah, they blow the cannons off. You know why? Because they're waging war in secret. They're the ones that are the enforcers. The Black Pope, whose office is across the street from the White Pope. The Black Pope is the White Pope's boss. And from his little office there, he controls all the secret societies across the planet. Most powerful man next to Satan. The number one man, the number one representative, founded by Ignatius Loyola to put forward the name of Jesus. And they took the name Yahshua out of the scriptures and put in the name Jesus. Talk about deception. So that's what they're dedicated to do, is to deceiving you. And they come up with a system of initiations that were basically brainwashing techniques. And Ignatius Loyola changed his name. And I have to admit that Loyola sounds a lot nicer than Lopez. He was a Spanish Murano. He was a Spanish Jew. And the Grand Inquisition came out of that group as well. And they were evil and diabolical. And they overshadowed the Bishop of Rome. They stole, basically, the jurisdiction, if you will. They stole the papacy. And the popes kicked them out for quite a while and banished them, and they got their asses back. How do I know this? I was educated by the Jesuits in part. I had a good, dear friend, a roommate, who became a Jesuit. I'd like to know what he thinks of them today. And I was told about those oaths and stuff a long time ago, those blood oaths. And they will do anything. And if you want to read a particular book, which you can get in PDF form, read the book Vatican Assassins. It's very long. You need to understand they loved poisons. Where did they get the poisons from? Where did the medical profession get their medicines from? And where are all the headquarters of all the major pharmaceutical companies? Where do they all have their headquarters at? Man, I'm all for Putin nuking Kiev. Small tactical nukes. Get this damn war over with. Because they all got their headquarters in Kiev. Kiev, you want to call it. I don't give a damn how you pronounce it. I call it Kiev. That's what we got from the board games, Risk and all that stuff when we were kids, or whatever the games were that we played. Kiev. I think that's the way you really say it. What's it matter, anyway? Oh, I guess it's got to be politically correct and you have to dominate? Well, you need to understand that the Polynesian people pronounce things slightly differently as well. They spelled words slightly differently, but it was the same people. And in case you're wondering, your Navajos in Arizona, which is the biggest tribe probably in the world, certainly the biggest registered tribe in America. They've been growing for quite a while. Reservation is nice, it's big, it's intact. Unfortunately, they've been targeted by the Department of Defense like the rest of the people have with their advanced technology. That ain't good stuff. And they call themselves the Dine, D-I-N-E, with an accent across it, Dine, which means the people. Okay, I guess we're all a little bit self-centric, ethnocentric. That's okay. I think they can call themselves the Dine. It's better than Navajo, which basically means thieves of the plains. And the Dine are bright people, smart boys. They synthesized all of this other stuff from all the other cultures they run into. They brought it into their culture. You go into their teepee ceremony, which I have done one time, and you will see that at the end the water woman has the bucket with water. She closes the ceremony, and on it is Jesus painted with open arms. Now, it's not quite the right Jesus, because they don't understand that he didn't have long hair, and he didn't have dark hair. He was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. I don't have blonde hair. I never had blonde hair, and I certainly as hell don't have blue eyes, okay? So don't tell me I'm being racist because of that. The truth is the truth. Anyway, the Navajo have a tradition, and their tradition is that they have their relatives. You see, the Navajo came through Alaska. They migrated through Alaska, and then when they got down to Arizona, they do what all Indians do, and they fought among themselves. In Alaska, we have 157 different tribes, because when they don't like each other, they move away from each other. They don't talk to each other. They have family squabbles. And by the way, they tend to move upriver from each other so that they're effluent, so that their excrement and urine will flow downriver, so they shit upon the people that they're pissed at. My God, some of the hassles you see in the interior are just wild. They'll put the trash dump in between the two villages and light it on fire all the time, and they don't get along very well. My God, they used to have gunfights out there until 1910, 1915. They would shoot at each other. In case you're wondering, it was just basically anger. They basically did not try to kill each other. They just were pissed off and were expressing their emotions. My God. People are strange. The Navajo had an argument. And they got pissed off at each other. And some of them got so pissed off they decided, we're going to go. We're going to separate. So they went back up to Alaska and settled in Alaska. We call them Athabascans. And they're a little bit darker skinned and a little bit larger than the other natives. And in case you're wondering. The Dene that I got to hang out with, the elders in particular, oh, Larry, beautiful man. Wow. Yeah, I kind of missed him in a way. He was a really good fellow. He was older than I. I'm sure he's passed by now. Larry Etzedy. Had long hair. My God, to see him on a horse, it was like he was born to be on a horse. I mean, they love horses. And he told me that they had some sort of exchange with the people from Mongolia. They loved horses as well, and they realized that they were the same stock. They also had a Eustrachian tube from their ears that didn't drop straight down. They went uphill a little bit, a different structure. And so they had the same thing. And by the way, it causes ear infections. Ear infections are a problem because that results in deafness. Deafness is a problem because the seat of intelligence is the ear. Hearing is how you learn your intelligence, how you get it. Thank God for hearing aids. Right one's still got a wax plug in it, and I haven't found my wax plugs yet. They're only $1 a piece, but the problem is I got to drive 16 miles to get them. It costs a lot of money to drive 16 miles in one direction today. I don't feel like spending, well, what is it, $5? And by the way, we're going to set a record this year, boys and girls. You should be proud. You're going to see gas go to $7 a gallon. Yeah, it's been $7, $8 a gallon in Europe for a few decades now. We had cheaper gas here because of the business that we did and allowed, and of course that's been destroyed now with the Chi-Com Joe in office. So he's destroying the nation, and you all are sitting by letting him do it. And is he there legally at all? I think he's a dumbass traitor. I think he's absolutely horrible. He's doing his best to divide the people, putting us at each other's throats, like he was a well-trained Jesuit. Huh. Interesting. Have you ever heard of a short skirt Jesuit? Short Jesuit. I'm not sure how it translates. I read it in Latin, and I never studied Latin. The Jews in Winthrop wouldn't allow me to into the Latin class like I wanted because they didn't want me going to medical school. They were discriminating against my white Caucasian Christian ass. They were the most discriminatory people, and they were abusive. I was in 9th grade then. Had to go to MIT and take one of my college entrance examination subjects because they twisted my arm. And they got pissed off because I got higher scores than their kids did that were in there the whole year. I had only read the book for 6 weeks. I show up at MIT, the old MIT, not the new one, and I had to walk up the steps at an angle because I was so small, and the steps were just too damn big, those granite steps. I had to walk up at an angle so I could get enough leverage to get myself up the next step. And I go in a room that's very austere. It's very cold. It is cold, physically cold. It's like Saturday morning. And there I am taking a test with these college-age people. Hell, I'm in 9th grade. Thank God the Jews made me do that. Because my score was so high, I was able to get in graduate school. Just because of that. My other tests, other ATC tests, were nowhere near that height. I want you to give the world a great reset. I want our republic back. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, and we're never going to come to an agreement on anything else. We need to return to gold and silver, honest currency once again. We need to kick the attorneys out of the other offices. And actually, we need to take their citizenship away. I know that's going to be a big squabble, a big hassle. We have to decide what to do with them. And I think one of the things we tell the attorneys is, you're allowed to come up with your own solution and your own proposal. As a matter of fact, that's what we want you to do. However, if you do anything in secret, it's a death penalty. And they'll say, well, it has to be privileged. No. You will have your debates in public. You will have them fully published. It will be above board, or we're going to take your damn heads off. And, of course, they're going to say, well, we got to keep our bar association. I'm going to say, what? You got to keep the British? The British thing? Why don't you just call it the American Association? The attorneys need to be rehabilitated. Talk about organized crime and criminals. Isn't it wonderful to be able to call them that? They've caused a lot of trouble, and they'll have to get us out of trouble. But if they do anything in secret, any negotiations in secret, any secret communications, off with their damn heads. Why? Because they got us into trouble. They caused us all this trouble where we no longer are under constitutional authority. Not since 1952 when they began the Interstate Commercial Code. And then they switched over from common law pleas where a man had rights that were protected in about 1964. That's also when we took the prayer out of schools. And that's also when we had a spike in crime because they made it big business. And they did business trading men's souls. No, if you do not think the guy is worth keeping in prison, then fine. Go back to capital punishment, get rid of them. If you think the guy should stay alive and could be rehabilitated, and you need to rehabilitate him, then you pay for it. Now, we got to talk about the Arizona prisons at some point and the screwed up situation in Arizona. Arizona runs around saying, this Katie Hobbs is the governor of the best state. I don't think so. I think you people are almost hopeless. They're certainly helpless down there. I like seeing Katie Hobbs in office. Proper payback. You damn son of a bitches that are so self-centered down there and run one of the worst prisons, actually the worst prison outside of the Deep South. Probably worse than the Deep South. And who's it worse for? Staff. The poor staff. Oh, my Lord. Look, I'm going long. I don't want to go long. I hope this flow of consciousness has been helpful to you. I feel energized right now. And I need to call it quits. I started my breakfast, got everything laid out. I got the dog outside. Ooh, I forgot to clean up. I got to get a baggie and get out there and clean up. My short-term working memory was obliterated in 2006 by a stroke, or 2 strokes, I should say. And as a result, I couldn't, there was a lot I couldn't do. I couldn't tell a story back. And when the neuropsychologist tested me and I realized I couldn't tell a story back, I looked at him and said, how the hell can I conduct therapy? He just kept a straight face. He was very smart because he knew that I needed to determine for myself whether or not I was safe to practice. And at that point, I realized I'm not safe to practice. And I also realized I couldn't defend myself anymore with this errant board because the psychological principles and my effectiveness were off the charts compared to theirs. And even my nemesis on the board said that he really knows psychology. How? I was told by my attorney that if I said what he thought I was going to say, the board was going to find me guilty of it was going to be unprofessional conduct because I had failed to turn in the laws, the breaking, the sins, the rule breaking of other psychologists. And at that point, I said, screw it. I'm not going to be guilty of unprofessional conduct. And the attorney was right. So I wrote a series of complaints. And I lettered them A through Z. And I can't remember if I got into double letters or not, but I got a few complaints off. And I told the story basically in each complaint. And the board had to deal with it. And they put everything under the carpet, including the murders. Yeah. Your board of psychologists examiners wants to protect libtards so badly they're going to protect them from charges of murder, fraud, and malfeasance. Oh, in case you're wondering, the fraud was against the United States Congress. And the malfeasance was signing off on that so that people could defraud the Congress. And I don't know how many men were killed, but they buried the evidence. They destroyed the records. They did the best they could to keep that from going public, because it went right to the governor. Because the governor's wife was running the Department of Corrections. They are married now. You know that, don't you? And it was in violation of state law to appoint a family member to a cabinet position underneath you. I didn't know that. And by the way, this recent fellow that retired in Arizona, I think he's the same guy that I made the reports 2 years ago, and he was the one that told me, you mean the governor's guilty of the violation of the law? So he told me what law it was that she was violating. I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. But, of course, they covered everything up. And the FBI, and I went to the old office on Indianola Street or Avenue, whatever it is downtown. I went there 3 times across 3 years. I finally gave them a written report. They don't want to enforce any laws. Oh, hell no. They avoid that. And I remember my buddy, the sheriff's deputy, who was retired, telling me he didn't think much of the FBI. They didn't like them. Bunch of idiots is partially what he called them. They didn't solve crimes. Everybody else solved them, and they took credit for them. Be aware, there's some sort of a committee on the weaponization of government against the American people. And that's what the 20 holdouts gave us in the Congress. Oh, thank God for them. We may be able to get this republic back without having a civil war. We have a civil war going on, and the other side is fighting very unfairly, and they're going to continue to do that. I recommend that you buy more ammo. It's going to get expensive here. Get it now. Get your firearms situated now. Above all, though, to defend yourself, you need to follow the advice of President Barack Hussein Obama. Yeah. He was good for something. And he told us they cling to their guns and their Bibles. You have got your guns. You haven't got your Bibles. I have the best Bible in the world. Take the link below. There's 5 different formats of the proper name version of the King James Bible. And for you people out there who say that all you want is a King James Bible, this is the final improvement on it. It is a copyrighted Bible, and I know that they complain, these pastors, well, you don't want a copyrighted Bible. Well, it turns out that, the copyrights are owned by they were owned by the Queen, now they're owned by the King. And everywhere else in the world, the King James Bible is copyrighted, except America. And we had to work, the publisher had to work 5 years of negotiating to get the copyrights, get the permission of the Crown to publish this new version of the Bible. We've got it, folks. It's about half price down there. I call it half price to motivate you. Prices will be going up. You're never going to get it cheaper than you can get it right now today. And any price ending in 77 cents is one of my Bibles. So I get credit for that. And that assures that you're paying the lowest price available anywhere. Publisher's a real nice guy. And if you really want to help me, like this thing, share this thing, leave a comment down below. Let's get above the algorithm on this stuff so I can get this around. I'm considering commercializing this channel. I have twice as many subscribers as the other channel, Awakening Israel. I will not commercialize that. I say that now. I may be forced to change my mind at some point. I don't want the extra scrutiny, and I want to be able to exercise First Amendment freedom of free speech rights and freedom of religion rights. If you can't have freedom of religion and free speech rights, you can't develop your conscience. You can't be a man of good conscience if you can't express yourself and confer with others. Talk about community standards. They're destroying community with their standards at YouTube. One more favor. If you don't mind, email name publishers, or call them on the phone and ask to have your name put on the waiting list for the Apocrypha books, the Deuterocanonical books, the 14 books which the dumbass Protestants, which I come from, they took out of the doggone Bible. It remains in the Catholic Bible, but they got some weird version in that. And I need 5,000 people committed to it. Once that happens, I have enough so we can have the good paper. And not only that, I want a peculiar Bible. I want it in 14-point font, large print, and I want it to be in black leather, and I want it to be tabbed. Why? You got that many more books, and if you're going to be able to thumb through the thing and find these books, let's just put tabs in there and make it easy. And besides, they traumatized me at Bible school. They teased me because I had put tabs in my Bible. I paid $2 for those tabs, and it took me a day or two to set those up across the pages and do that right. And they were upset because when they had that exercise to find something, I guess they considered it cheating because I had tabbed my study Bible. I wished I'd have read the Bible more than even go into that, because that was controlled. All these big box churches are big businesses and very much controlled. And in case you're wondering, the evil ones control all the religion on the planet. They control all of the governments on the planet. There's 3 evil demons, frogs or whatever, came out of there's 3 frogs, evil demons, that appear out of the Bible and Revelations. They're symbolic of government, evil, education, evil, especially today in the United States of America, and the wokeness around the whole damn world. And the fact that we can't study the past, and they don't even do the excavations and preserve these sites, they destroy them. In New Zealand, they're doing that. In America, they're doing that. They're doing that everywhere. Religion, organized religion, is evil. Sorry. I don't advocate you go to church. You don't get it there. You get it by sitting on your ass and reading the Bible. And when you've read the Bible, talk to your brothers and sisters, because that's when the Spirit appears. That's where it exists. Yeah, we're bearers of it. And the evil ones know that. And they're jealous because they can't have that. They can't be converted. They are marked for the lake of fire. Folks, this is the longest I've ever gone. I apologize for it. Hope you got something out of this video in particular. May Yahweh bless America. May Yahweh help us. May we bless Yahweh, turn to Yahweh, get him fighting for us and helping us restore our republic so that we may have Pax Americana for 1,000 years on the face of the earth. In case you're wondering, that's how I read the Bible. And we dig those rats out of their holes. And in case you're wondering, it's going to take a lot of years to get them out. That's how I read it. It ain't going to be instant and overnight. It ain't going to be poof. Everything's taken care of. Although the destruction could be poof and everything is taken care of that way too. I believe it's an honest feedback system between us and our spirits and that sun. That sun that goes errant upon us and, like a flash in the pan, quite seriously, takes out most of the population on the surface at one time. And there are some survivors. We'll talk about that another time. Yahweh bless. I got to go have breakfast. I'm old and pick up the dog's mess outside. Thank you.